It's not often someone can genuinely be described as defining the Australian spirit. But if anyone can, it's the remarkable Lorna Whyte Johnson. Born a week before the Gallipoli landings, she was an army nurse in the Second World War and survived an incredible ordeal as a prisoner of war in Japanese camps. Lorna died recently, the last of 76 Australian POW nurses, but her tale and her legacy of courage lives on. Here's our special tribute.
Volcano town Rabaul, New Guinea paradise. 70-odd years ago, an Australian territory. Its glorious harbour, a mecca of fun and sun. On one ship, Lorna Whyte, an army nurse with the small Australian garrison defending Rabaul. War seemed a long way off.
I don't know whether there were 26, 36 or 46 ships, but how many there were. There were submarines, there were aircraft carriers, there were troop ships, there were landing barges, they were there, and it was this massive convoy of ships coming up Rabaul Harbour.
Take cover, everyone!
Our forces were quickly overrun and in retreat. Their nurses also stranded.
Our ships will be picking us up, won't they?
Oh, sure, as they're driven the Japanese back to Tokyo.
But there was no rescue, only capture.
The significance was that the Japanese thought that they'd caught part of Australia, as New Britain was a mandated territory to Australia. So they thought they had a bit of a prize.
Rabaul, on the island of New Britain. And from this base, soldiers, sailors and airmen of Imperial Japan can attempt to break the fragile hold of Americans and Australians, southeast on Guadalcanal, southwest on New Guinea.
Nearly all the Australian men eventually perished.
Some were massacred, some died of disease in the jungle, because they had no medication at all.
The army nurses were interned with nuns at a Catholic mission. Lorna formed a bond with Sister Berenice Twohill, so special, a movie was made about it.
Do you reckon they'll behead us? Swords and honour, they say, for men. Lowly females just get shot. It won't be so bad. We'll hold each other's hand, and there'll be a loud bang. And next thing you know, you'll be in heaven. And where will you be, Lorna?
The first 3 weeks was really bad news at the convent. Every night we used to be absolutely inundated by these young soldiers. They wouldn't have been very old, and they would come, and none of them raped us or anything like that, but they would come and just sit on our bed and point the bayonet at you like this, or put their gun down the front of you, light on, and just sit and stare at you. It was very, very frightening.
Lorna watched Aussie troops taken away for massacre or transportation to Japan. Then it was the nurses' turn.
All nurses, go inside and pack. You will be leaving this camp. All nuns must stay.
The significance is that these nurses were the only Australian nurses to be captured on Australian territory to be taken to Japan.
At night, they had the coldest winter in Japan for 100 years, and these girls were very cold, and there were a couple of particularly nasty guards who used to come along, drag them all out of bed, and then line them up and belt them across the face for no reason at all.
They suffered many privations. They had to dig stumps, pump water, collect firewood, a lot of menial tasks.
Rod Miller's incredible research on the Rabaul nurses led to the movie. His treasured memento from Lorna, this handkerchief, embroidered by the women in the POW camp.
They were always had to clean out the actual camp itself, the building itself. They washed it out many times, and it was very, very cold. And they found it very, very difficult because they had no clothing and just barefooted, very thin Tanami mats to sleep on. They had no bedding as such. It was very, very, very tough.
We became the biggest Ned Kellys that anybody could ever know. We learnt very early in the piece the way to survive was to thieve.
They actually crept under the barbed wire at night into the cemetery when someone was buried because the Japanese leave offerings of food and they had to eat that mouldy food.
Not on your life, mate. I was here first. Yeah, I'll admit it. We have to fight for everything. But we win.
Documentary maker John Schindler recorded the interviews with Lorna, featured here.
They were forced to use glue to make items for Japanese soldiers. And the glue was rice-based. And one of the girls discovered that you can actually eat the glue. So they started eating the glue, but they had to take the arsenic pellets out first. When the Japanese discovered that they were eating the glue, they even took the glue away from them.
Lorna always spoke of the firebombing of Tokyo, that they could actually see the percussion of the bombs going off and the red glow at night. So they were looking out over the plains of Japan, watching that take place. The atomic bomb went off. Lorna always told the story that a guard came running in one day saying, "A big bomb's gone off, big bomb, it's destroyed a city." And Kay Parker said to him, "Well, don't worry about that, we've got plenty of those."
And of course we didn't know what it was, and after the war, when they told us we were all going to be beheaded, all the prisoners were to be beheaded if the Americans arrived, and that was true.
I learnt a lot from Lorna, there's no doubt about that, and I think the thing is that you never give up, you keep going, and you have a bit of Aussie larrikin to you, and that's important. I think to have the bit of larrikin that she had in her is an important thing.
Never lost hope. Always thought we'd see Australia again, yes. Even the girls who were desperately sick towards the end never gave a Cal, who was dying with TB and had her 2 lungs completely gone. She was so ill that if she'd been in a normal life she would have died, but she was determined. She was going to get back to Australia. And when the bombing got worse, she knew we were getting at the end of the war, and she just kept alive.
At a sprightly 96, Lorna was invited back to Japan with other POWs.
They gave us a wonderful, wonderful reception. Couldn't have done a lovely 10 days touring around Japan. Yeah, it was very good. Well, and they gave us an apology. The Foreign Office, the Japanese people are good people now. I said I didn't think I'd ever say that, but I do think it, that different types of people. They weren't the wartime type people. You know, there's 2 cultures.
Lorna's bond with her old friend Sister Berenice was lifelong. Her spirit and legacy, say those who knew her, will be everlasting.
I was writing something for the funeral service, and I was writing about how the Japanese young people of today had treated her like a queen. And then I thought to myself, well, she is a queen. She is that. Every bit a queen, Lorna. And, I must say that now I loved Lorna. She was just a great Australian, an icon, and long after we're gone, people will remember her and tell of their story of courage and, amidst terrible suffering, bravery.
And that remarkable story was produced and presented by Today Tonight's executive producer, Max Utrich.